In a small village nestled beside a winding river, where the winds carried the scent of wildflowers and the whispers of leaves, there lived a young man named Landon. Landon lived his life like a sturdy stone statue amidst the flow of time. He was the most famous blacksmith in the region, with calloused hands and a will of iron. Every morning, Landon woke before dawn, lit his forge, and began shaping crude iron bars into sharp, perfect tools. He believed that life was a battle to be controlled, to hold everything in the palm of his hand. If you don't control things, they will shatter. Landon often told himself, repeating it like an ancient mantra. Landon's village was a place where change seemed to be the enemy. Spring brought flood rains, summer scorched the fields, autumn turned leaves yellow, and the bitter winter froze all living things. But Landon never let these things shake him. He built his life around stability: a sturdy wooden house, a gentle wife named Maya, and 2 young children growing up in his protective embrace. Maya often told him, "Life is like the river, my love. Why cling so hard to the shore?" But Landon would only give a faint smile and shake his head. The river can sweep everything away if we don't build dams. He didn't know that deep in the universe everything is a dance, not a battle but a blending, a flowing. One day, while forging a sword for the local lord, Landon reflected on his life. He recalled his childhood, when his father, a fisherman, had taught him how to row a boat on the river. "Son, don't fight the current," his father had said. "Let it guide you." But Landon had forgotten those words. He chose blacksmithing because he wanted to create immutable things, tools that could withstand time. Every hammer blow was an affirmation. "I control my fate." Yet deep down, Landon felt a vague unease, like the whisper of wind through a crack in the door. He had strange dreams where he was a tiny wave in a vast ocean, swept away without being able to resist. Landon's life continued under this control, but change was lurking. The river beside the village began to shift its course due to heavy rains upstream. The water rose, flooding the fields, and the village began to buzz with anxiety. Landon was the first to stand up, organizing the villagers to build a dam. He worked incessantly, his hands bleeding, but in his heart, he knew this was only temporary. "I must hold fast," he thought. But late at night, lying beside Maya, he heard the river calling, like an invitation to a mysterious dance. Maya whispered, "My love, perhaps we should learn to flow with it." Landon remained silent, but the seed of doubt had been sown. Then one afternoon, as Landon sat by the river resting after a hard day's work, he met a strange old man. The elder sat on a rock, holding a fishing rod, but he wasn't fishing, just watching the water flow. "Young man, do you know that life is like this river?" the old man asked, his voice as gentle as a breeze. Surprised, Landon sat down beside him. The old man continued, "The river never stops, never resists. It flows, meanders, and in that flowing, it creates beauty. If you try to block it, you only make it stronger." Landon laughed. "But if we don't block it, it will sweep everything away." The old man smiled. "That is the art of letting go, not surrendering, but joining the dance. As a Western philosopher once said, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance." Landon listened but wasn't convinced. The old man told ancient stories about people who clung to the past and lost the present. "You are the ocean, not the wave," the old man said. "The wave changes, rises and falls, but the ocean remains, vast and immutable." Landon felt a fresh breeze blow through his soul. He began to think about his life. Were the iron bars he forged truly immutable, or would they too rust with time? Maya and the children, was he controlling them, or stifling their freedom? The river before him seemed to laugh, inviting him to let go. As the sun set, the old man stood up, leaving a small book on the rock. "Read it, young man. It will teach you how to embrace change." Landon picked up the book, its cover made of old leather, with the title, "The Art of Letting Go, The Teachings of Alan Watts." He opened the first page and the world began to change. But at this moment, Landon didn't know that the real journey had only just begun. He returned home, his heart restless, but also filled with a vague hope. That night, His sleep was no longer troubled by worry, but by images of dancing with the river. Landon began his journey with that small book on a quiet evening, when the village was submerged in darkness and only the murmur of the river remained, like a gentle lullaby. He sat by the flickering oil lamp, opened the first page, and the world of Alan Watts unfolded before him like a vast ocean. Watts wrote about the impermanence of all things, that everything is a continuous flow with no clear beginning or end. Life is not a problem to be solved, Watts said, but a reality to be experienced. Landon read on, deeply moved. He thought about his blacksmithing. The iron bars he shaped, were they truly eternal, or were they just temporary waves on the surface of the ocean of time? As he read deeper, Landon encountered the concept of letting go. Watts compared it to throwing oneself into the river, not resisting but merging with it. If you try to hold water in your hand, Watts wrote, you are left with only a wet hand, but if you open yourself, the river becomes a part of you. Landon reflected on his own life. He remembered the arguments with Maya because he was too controlling, deciding everything from meals to how to raise the children, allowing no room for change. I've been trying to build a dam for my family, he wondered. But am I preventing the natural flow? That night, Landon couldn't sleep. He went to the river, sat on the rock where he met the old man and tried to let go. He closed his eyes, took deep breaths, and let the sound of the water wash away his worries. For the first time, he felt a sense of peace, not from control, but from acceptance. The next morning, Landon woke with a new energy. He still forged iron, but now each hammer blow was no longer an affirmation of power, but part of a dance. He began to apply Watts' philosophy to his work. Instead of forcing the iron into a perfect shape, he let it bend according to the natural heat, and strangely, the products were more beautiful than ever. The villagers were surprised. Landon is different today. He smiles more. His work is more gentle. Maya noticed the change, hugged him, and whispered, "You're flowing with the river now." But the real change came when the village faced a great flood. The river rose high, threatening to sweep everything away. The villagers panicked, running to Landon. "You must lead us to build a higher dam." Landon hesitated. He remembered Watts' words. Resistance only increases the power of the flow. Landon decided to try a new approach. Instead of building a rigid dam, he suggested the villagers temporarily relocate to the high hill and learn to live in harmony with the river. "We cannot stop the river," he said, "but we can dance with it." Some objected, calling him crazy, but Maya supported him, and a few followed. They took necessary belongings, camped on the hill, and watched the flood from a distance. While waiting, Landon told people about Watts, about letting go of the ego, the self, to become part of the greater universe. "You are not a separate drop of water," he explained. "You are the ocean. Change is the wave, but your essence remains intact." These stories spread, and the villagers began to share their fears, finding connection in shared surrender. When the flood receded, the village was not completely destroyed as they had feared. The river had changed course, bringing fresh silt to the fields, promising a bountiful harvest. Landon returned home to find his wooden house still standing, but he no longer saw it as an impregnable fortress. He hugged Maya and the children, feeling the fragility of life more deeply. Watts was right, he thought. Letting go is not a loss but a liberation. However, a greater challenge awaited. The local lord, hearing of Landon's rebellion, summoned him. "You dare challenge the order?" the lord shouted. Landon remained, calm, remembering Watts' words. "Don't try to fix yourself or the world, let it happen." He replied, "My lord, I am only learning to go with the flow." Landon's journey deepened as he finished the book. Watts taught about Wu Wei, non-forced action, from Taoism. "Be like the bamboo," Watts wrote. "It bends with the wind, but does not break." Landon applied this to his relationships. He let Maya make some family decisions and saw her become happier. With the children, he no longer forced them to learn blacksmithing, but encouraged them to explore. One child liked to draw, the other loved fishing, and Landon realized this change enriched the family. But it wasn't always easy. Some nights the old fear returned, "If I let go, will I lose everything?" He would go to the river, meditate, and find the answer in the flow. Change is a dance, not a disaster. Gradually, Landon became the village's reluctant teacher. People came to ask him how to deal with loss, a failed crop, the death of a loved one. Landon shared, "According to Watts, death is not an end, but part of a cycle. Let go of the pain to continue living." The village began to change. They built more flexible houses, planted trees along the river, and held gatherings by the river to dance, which was actually dancing and storytelling. Landon felt he was no longer a stone statue, but part of a dancing universe. But deep down he knew the journey wasn't over. A greater storm was coming, testing his true ability to let go. That great storm hit the village like a challenge from the universe, bringing howling winds and torrential rain, enraging the river. Landon stood on the high hill, looking down at the village submerged in grey water, his heart trembling but no longer filled with the fear of the past. Watts had taught him that the storm was not an enemy, but part of the great dance, the necessary chaos for rebirth. "Life is a symphony," Watts wrote in the book, "with climaxes and lulls, but if you try to mute it, you lose the melody." Landon remembered his meeting with the Lord. The Lord, in his cold iron armor, had mocked his philosophy. Letting go. "That's the talk of the week," he had roared, and ordered Landon to build a stronger dam system or face punishment. Landon had bowed his head, but in his heart he knew. This was the real test. Landon returned to the village amidst the storm, gathering the people in a temporary community house. "We cannot fight the storm with strength," he said, his voice as calm as the deep river. "Watts teaches us to be like the bamboo, bend with the wind, do not break. Letting go is not giving up, but trusting the flow." Some were skeptical, remembering the previous flood, but those who had followed him before nodded. They began to prepare, not by building a dam, but by creating natural drainage, moving livestock to higher ground, and sharing food as a community. Maya stood by him, holding his hand. "You are leading us to dance with the storm." That night, as the wind whistled through the door cracks, Landon sat in meditation, observing his fearful thoughts pass like dark clouds. He felt his ego, the controlling self, dissolving, revealing his true nature, a part of the universe not separate but blended. When the storm peaked, the village shook. A great old tree fell, blocking the river's path, causing the water to rise higher. The villagers panicked, running to Landon. "We must chop the tree, we must control it." But Landon shook his head, remembering Watts' words about Wu Wei. Action without forcing, letting nature adjust itself. "Wait," he said, "the river will find a way." And miraculously, after a few hours, the water washed the tree away naturally, opening a new path, and the storm began to subside. The village was not heavily destroyed as predicted. Instead, the new silt brought fertile land, and the trees revived more vigorously. The villagers looked at Landon with respect. "You saved us by doing nothing?" Landon laughed. "Not me, but the flow." Watts said, "You don't have to do anything to be, you already are. We just need to let go of the illusion of control." After the storm, the Lord summoned Landon again, but this time with a different expression. "Your village survived without obeying me," he said, his voice mixed with anger and curiosity. Landon calmly told him about Watts, about the art of embracing change like a dance. "My lord, life is like the ocean. We are the waves, rising and falling to the rhythm, but our essence is water, unchanging in change." The Lord was silent. Then suddenly he laughed loudly. "You are a madman, but a good kind of mad. I will let your village be free, but in return, teach me this dance." Landon was surprised, but realized the philosophy was spreading, like a river expanding. Landon's journey now deepened as he explored the later part of the book, about death and rebirth. Watts wrote that death is not an end, but a transition. Like withered leaves falling, so spring can sprout. Landon applied this to personal loss. His father had died long ago, and he had painfully clung to the memory. Now he let go, allowing the memory to become part of the present, no longer a burden. With Maya, their relationship deepened. They no longer controlled each other, but flowed together, discovering new aspects. The children grew up freely, one learning to paint rivers and water, the other following his father to fish, learning to release the rod when the fish bit. But the greatest challenge came when Maya fell seriously ill. The village doctor shook his head. It's hard to pull through. Landon was in pain, his old fear resurfacing. I can't let her go. He sat by her sickbed holding Maya's hand and remembered Watt's words. True love is letting go of attachment, allowing the soul to be free. Maya whispered, My love, I am the wave. You are the ocean. Let me flow, Landon cried, but he let go of her hand, not giving up hope but accepting the flow. Miraculously, Maya recovered, as if the letting go had opened a path for new energy. Landon realized letting go is the greatest power, transforming suffering into a lesson. Gradually, Landon's reputation spread. Visitors from other villages came, hearing about the river teacher. He did not call himself a teacher, only sharing Watts. I am just a part of the dance. The village became a place of peace where change was welcomed as a friend. But Landon knew the journey was endless. The universe always changes and he must continue to let go. One day the old man returned, smiling. You have learned well. Now teach others to dance. Landon nodded, ready for the next chapter. He and Maya, with their daughter Ocean, left the village carrying Watt's book as a companion. They traveled far to cities and oceans, spreading the philosophy of letting go, of being the ocean, not the wave. They learned that the dance was eternal, and that in plunging into change they found true freedom. Landon's life ended peacefully by the river, his last thoughts a release into the great dance. His legacy lived on through Ocean and the village, a timeless reminder from Alan Watts. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance.